Thank you for having me today and also for the welcome here, and thank you to those who I've met and looking forward to those who I haven't met yet. Being here for 3 months and just coming into Sunshine Coast, pretty hot off a plane from New York, has been amazing to have a hub like this in a network. So just going to do a quick intro because I think some of you don't know me. And so Ben Mooney, I'm working for a company called Material Plus, which I'll touch upon shortly, but just quickly from a personal side, married, 3 kids. If anyone wants to travel around the world with 3 kids, take a deep breath before you do it. If you haven't done it before, it's great, but it's also super intense. This is Costa Rica on the way home from New York. Fantastic location if you ever get a chance to get there. On the professional side, really the hats I've worn has been mainly around the sales and the partnership side of things in the space of customer experience and marketing technology. So that's kind of the hats and the industry I've been part of. I've lived around the world, lived and worked in London, was in Malawi, Africa for 6 months, and then just 5 years in New York, but originally from Australia as well, and then in APAC and global roles, so working through that. But Peregian Springs is now home. So we bought a place, settled on Tuesday, and as Chris was just saying, that we've got the shipping container from New York arriving tomorrow. So the next 3 days are going to be fun and painful unpacking. So my career has really been a career of partnership roles on, like I said, either side of customer experience and marketing technology. I've either been on the agency and the consulting side, so services, or I've been on the technology and like the SaaS side of things. So always looking or partnering on the other side of the fence, as I like to say. Some of these logos will be familiar to some of you. Some of the big, obviously, GSIs or global system integrators or consulting firms, holding companies from an agency standpoint, and then on the tech side, some of the big names as well. I haven't worked for all of these, but I've at least worked or partnered with all of these logos. And again, this concept of the partner fence, it really helps to put yourself in the other's shoes to understand that value proposition that you can give them and then they can bring you, okay? So enough of an intro. The value of partners. So I was just talking, like, this is not a presentation I normally give, so I had to kind of think through how to bring this together. One of the resources I'll touch upon later is this community called Partnership Leaders. It's an amazing community. It's been around for about 3 or 4 years now. I've been a member since it started. And some of the content and thought leadership here is collective from that, being one of the leaders of that community. So just a shout out to partnership leaders themselves. The topics that I'm going to cover, trying to stay on the theme of practical, but also educational. So I'm going to hit on partner types, the value of partnerships, that value exchange, some thinking around like a go-to-market, how to form a go-to-market with partners that you have or don't have or thinking about forming, and then just some tips and tools. Is there anything else that anyone wanted specifically to cover from a partnership standpoint? I'll try and cover it off. No? Cool, okay. I do have a question though. Who, put your hand up if you've partnered before, in air quotes. Who's partnered or who thinks they've partnered? Yep. Anyone want to call out one of the partnerships that they've driven before? I'm going to pick on you.
You?
Me? Yep. Good one.
Keeping it real.
Yep, that was good. Anyone else? Yep. Good input.
I had a partnership with PwC.
PwC? Yep. And what was that like? Just maybe some color on that.
We had a partnership for implementation.
Yep.
So my company, we specialize in SAP.
Yep.
And we delivered a number of implementation for PwC clients.
Cool.
But we terminated the partnership maybe 3 months ago because it was horrible.
Okay. Horrible. I'll touch upon that word horrible in a moment because that's sometimes associated with the partnership game.
And one of the challenges, legal.
Yep.
And when you partner with a big corporation like PwC, legal is a very big thing. That
the David and Goliath concept or analogy is very present in the partnership world all the time. Sometimes in the horrible sense, but the idea of this is to kind of, if you're David and you're looking to partner with Goliath, the multiplier effect in terms of value can be huge. Okay, So another quick question before I get into like what makes a good partnership? Anyone want to call out?
Win-win.
Win-win? Nice.
I was going to say value exchange, but also just a clear understanding of what type of partnership it is. Like, is it just purely commercial and technical, or is there a joint go-to-market?
Yep, 100%. Anyone else? Cool. Well, you stole my thunder there, or nailed it. So value exchange. So this is I think these two things, if you get these two things right from the outset, and you can do it on the fly as well, but you eventually need to land on a true value exchange between your business or the company and the partner or partner ecosystem, and what I refer to as partner experience or PX. Most people are familiar with customer experience, CX, or employee experience, EX. So this concept of partner experience, if you have one of these but not the other, you'll only get so far. If you have a really nice value exchange, that can tick along to a certain point, but if you want to accelerate and have your partners lean in, then if you provide them a really good partner experience, it will just multiply both aspects, okay? So hopefully I touch upon both of these points, value exchange and PX, through this presentation. Okay, so types of partnerships. So there's tons of different types of partnerships. I've just tried to capture some of these. So technology partnerships, so the likes of Salesforce, Adobe, Microsoft, etc. You've got your solution partnerships. I call them service-based partnerships. So agencies, consultancies, SIs, or in other language, system integrators. So they're the partners if you're a technology firm, or even if you're a service-to-service partnership, where you're going to market to create a solution or actually implement and build out a solution. You've got resellers and distributors, affiliates and referrals, MSPs or managed service providers. I like to think of them as an organization might completely outsource a function of their business. So outsource HR, TCS, Tata Consulting Services, that's a big Indian system integrator or technology firm. Just in the last week, I've come up with some conversations with some customers where they outsource their entire IT operations to TCS. So that's an example of an MSP there. OEM, I was just having a conversation around OEM partnerships or original equipment manufacturers. The concept or the basis of that is you've got a hardware provider and a software provider coming together, okay? And then I'll hit on that with an example in a moment. And then you've got marketplaces from a cloud standpoint, so AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure. So some examples of these. So agency and social platform. So I've tried to give some examples on what the value exchange here. So social platform being LinkedIn, Meta, for example. So both of these parties or partners are working with an end consumer, an end brand. And the agency is looking for services dollars or a retainer from the brand, and the social platform is looking for ad revenue. So if these two work together, they can improve obviously the value to the customer and increase both areas of return for them. Another one, SIs and software businesses. So similar to agencies, SIs can, obviously lots of other value exchanges, but at a core services dollars or project revenue. And on the SaaS side, they're looking to sell licenses. This is an OEM example. So just bought a house, didn't bring any electricals back home from New York. So went and bought 2 TCL TVs just this week. And they're set up obviously with Google. So the exchange here is that TCL are selling their hardware, their screens themselves. I chose TCL because of the Google TV. I'm a big Google user. And then I'm going to set the TVs up and buy more content from Google Play or Google TV as it's called now. Just last week I spent $35 on the Barbie movie for my daughter. So thanks Google. This is an interesting one that not everyone thinks about. So I'm not sure if you know Vista Equity Partners. They're a big VC firm focused in the software and MarTech space. I actually looked at a role within Vista Equity Partners managing their partnerships across their portfolio. So this is an internal VC play for partnerships to help grow their portfolio, but also increase scale and efficiencies within the portfolio itself. So the role that I was looking at wouldn't have gone outside of their own portfolio firms, looking for opportunities to partner between them. Today, in Material Plus, the company I'm leading across Australia and New Zealand, we're about 2,500 people. There is a very big capability out of America, but not so much here. That's my job, to build that out. I partnered with Dana and Caleb at Divide by Zero, who are based here in the hub. I had an opportunity. I didn't have the design and user experience capabilities. They did. I went to them, we've formed a partnership, and we're responding to the opportunity tomorrow. So it's been a great partnership that I formed literally as a basis of the hub. And then the last one, Tony, I said I'd talk about you, mate. So great, presentation from you last week. And, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I see that, your business model is a partnership between pools, yourself, and hole diggers. As you explained last week, the value exchange for yourself is referral fees, success fees, and for the hole diggers, leads, new customers. But I did want to call out, I think, brilliant move, hiring Rhiannon. So hiring, if you weren't here last week, Tony hired a woman whose name's Rhiannon from the pool industry. And from what I picked up last week, she's come in to pools and increased the partner experience for the hole diggers. So I think that's just a brilliant move to kind of build out that partner experience and that value exchange to both parties. Cool. Any questions on partner types or feedback on that? Nope. Cool. Keep moving. So, partner value or partner exchange. So, everyone loves a good old study. So this is a study from Ernst & Young focused on partner ecosystem value. So a couple of call outs here is, high performing ecosystem contributes to 1.5x in terms of annual partner revenue. Ultimately a proof point, and lots of C-suites are now looking for proof points to why invest in partners. So studies like this have become really helpful. And also a call out is that there are some chief partner officer roles starting to pop up in the C-suite of big businesses now as well, which is great to see. I'm obviously biased there. And then a couple of other areas that EY calls out in terms of partner value. So extending into new geographies, creativity, innovation, speed to market. I'm now going to hit on a few things that I personally focus on when I'm kind of building out a partnership. I do a lot of co-selling in my partner approach, which I'll hit on later. But one of them is reach. So in this case, reach to customers or potential customers for your business. So without partners, it's just like a one-to-one, like a direct approach or a direct reach that you have with the customers that you've got access to. But with a partner ecosystem, there's obviously a big multiplier. So the idea here is that you've identified your value exchange. The partner then brings you into their customers, and it's obvious you go on from there to close new business. From a capability standpoint, so I like to think about this as an opportunity to change the conversation or reshape the conversation. So one of your customers today might come to you and say, hey Ben, do you do change management, or can you help us with change management? And your answer might be no, just because you don't have that capability. Now that, in my opinion, is a lost opportunity to add value to your existing customer and that customer experience. So with partners, you can change that. So you can say, look, we don't do that, but I've got this partner over here that does that. I'd love to introduce you. That keeps that conversation flowing and generally positive, which obviously is a win. But also it potentially will serve you back as well, because the opportunity or the service or challenge that the customer is asking for, you're keeping it within your safe zone, within your partner ecosystem, and that might come back to give you a benefit as well. So access, this is by far one of the major value propositions that partners can bring you if done well. And by access, I mean access to stakeholders in existing customers that you have, prospects or target accounts. So again, without partners, obviously you're limited to what you have and your team has. with partners, you can start, and it doesn't have to just be a single partner. You can start to work with them to access different C-suite members, procurement, new lines of business for organic growth within your existing customer. It goes on and on and on. So this is a really big one. So if you haven't started to work with partners in terms of access to people within businesses, definitely have a think about starting that soon. MEDDIC. Who's heard or knows what MEDDIC is? No? Okay. So MEDDIC, I will forget MEDDIC for a moment, but it's ultimately a sales process or sales qualification method. A lot of software businesses use MEDDIC. Another one is BANT, which is budget, access, is something I'll come back to it, and timing. So anyway, it's a way of qualifying opportunities that you have. Now, I'm not going to go through this. It's here on the screen, it's on the recording. It's not a MEDDIC lesson. You can go deep in this area of sales. But the point here is that you can leverage your partners to qualify each of these points in the sales qualification process. Okay? So I'll just pick on paper process for a moment. You might be trying to do a deal with a net new customer, a net new logo. You've never worked with procurement before, but one of your partners has. They can help you identify all the steps in the process to actually get to a signed contract. So instead of trying to do all of this yourself, work with your partners, and ultimately it will help you close your deal faster. It sometimes will increase the value of it as well. International, so if you're looking to grow internationally into new markets, pretty obvious here around benefits in terms of language, existing relationships in market, currency, legal requirements. Similar to contractual value, so some partners might already have an MSA in place, or Master Services Agreement. If you're in a competitive bid situation and you're up against competition, and you have a partner that has an existing MSA with the customer you're pitching to, you could sell your product or your services through that partner and avoid having to set up it or go through the MSA and legal process yourself. And if your competition don't have that, you then have an immediate competitive advantage. Last one in this value exchange section is around marketplace value. So this is somewhat specifically to the cloud marketplaces that I referred to before, GCP, AWS, and Azure. I actually really doubled down on this in the last 2 years when I was in New York with my last company called Sprinkler. I'm going to focus on burning down credits. So one of the ways that these marketplaces work is that GCP or AWS works with Telstra, let's say, and Telstra signs up to, pick a number, $100 million, probably a lot more, annual spend with the cloud provider. They're on the hook. In this case, Telstra is then on the hook to spend that 100 million, because that 100 million spend comes with associated discounts. Okay? Now, if Telstra doesn't spend $100 million with, say, AWS in that calendar or financial year, by the end of the year, they're still on the hook to pay it out. So one of the ways you can leverage partnerships in that little, sometimes big situation is if Telstra is looking for a product or a service that's available via the AWS marketplace, they can acquire that product or service through the marketplace, and it draws down, or the transaction in the marketplace draws down on the $100 million. Okay? So obviously $100 million is a big amount. Sometimes obviously they're transacting big amounts with like Telstra buying Salesforce through the marketplace or something like that. But it can be a significant win for all parties involved in that mix. So that's a big one not to overlook, because it can unlock a lot of things in the sales process. Okay. Any questions on that? That was a bit of a fireside run through. Yeah.
Yeah, on the MSA structure, you mentioned that if you have a partner network, you can potentially buy through, say, you're working with a technology platform
Yeah.
that had that agreement in place. I presume in that case you would have some revenue share arrangement. And can you give some light on that? What that might look like? Is there a typical like percentage, or what's like expected?
The particular MSA path is you've probably already got that partnership set up, so that value exchange is already there. It sometimes is already like it's a technology and service setup. So if either's going through the other party kind of MSA, then you're either selling the licenses I suppose I'm going to my comfort zone in terms of answering the question. You're either selling the license or you're selling the services. So that value exchange already exists, and there's not so, in terms of what you're talking about, like a clip of the ticket or a percentage share there, because the value exchange is I'm either going to implement the software that's being sold, or the service provider is going to get the dollars the service provider is going to help sell the software for the technology vendor. Now, sometimes there's inbuilt between that relationship, there is a clip of the ticket or a percentage in terms of referral. So I just signed a referral agreement with Algolia, which is a search platform within the ecosystem I'm building out. They have, and it's publicly available, so I'm sure it's fine in terms of recording. It's generally speaking, it's 5, 10, 15%, depending upon the level of involvement. So this is probably another way of answering your question. So sometimes a referral is you just throw them the lead and you don't do anything. That's probably 5%. If you help co-sell with them, you give them the lead and then you co-sell 10%. But if you're like literally in the bunker with them and co-solutioning and all that kind of stuff, then you probably max it out at 15%. Does that help?
It's really helpful.
Yeah, I guess I always felt that ultimately it's relative to what gets the sales team excited. Sometimes, I've thrown a lot more.
I'm going to take that point as it's negotiable. In terms of obviously sales are sales, so sometimes you can go to the business and ask for 20% or something like that. So that can be flexible. In this, there's a partner I'm working with at the moment that is available via Google Marketplace. The Google Marketplace sellers get a higher compensation through the marketplace than the salesperson at the software company selling their own product.
Wow.
Because of the multiplier of marketplace. So, totally in line with what you said.
Actually, just on that point of the MSA agreements.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're working on an offering together, that would often make sense. But we've had situations where we've known a supplier we've worked with before, or partner in a kind of broad sense,
Yep.
and we know, or we've had an MSA agreement that they've wanted to use us, or vice versa.
Yep.
A big challenge has been risk, because if it's going through our name and we're not linked to that particular offering, then there's a big potential risk for us as the ownership agreement. Do you ever have trouble getting around that, or any easy suggestions?
No. I would say if you're just being used for the vehicle, like I was in terms of the MSA, just to shortcut that for your other partner, and there's no true exchange for you there, I would say that's I call it a captain's call in terms of just do you want to do it for the benefit of the partnership in other areas or the benefit to the customer because they really want that product? I don't, there's no silver bullet to manage the risk. It's just if there is peripheral value rather than that core value exchange, if you're doing a favor ultimately for the partner, and it's kind of like that, not a brown paper bag, but like a handshake to kind of go, okay, I did this for you, you can help us out with something else in the future.
Yeah.
Which there's a lot of that in the partnership game.
Sorry, on that sort of affiliate way, partnership, is that usually done, like clipping the ticket, is it usually done in perpetuity, or is it time constrained? So it's clipping the ticket for a set amount of time?
You can do either. It's
What's more common?
I would say perpetuity. Like, so it's like the example I just gave, we've signed a contract and that just sits there now. So we've signed it because it's a new partnership. So I've signed an NDA and the referral agreement. That was being driven partly because we're building out an accelerator that involves their product. So we wanted to get more access to their kind of resources and sandbox. But also I've got an immediate opportunity to bring them. So I didn't want to bring them that opportunity until I had the referral. Not that that's my core business, referral, because we're a services business, so it's more the implementation of it. But I kind of parallel path both of that to get the referral agreement. Now that referral agreement's going to sit there, you know, for as long as we're partners at that 5, 10, 15% breakpoints. Yeah. Okay, go to market with partners. So, you know, a lot of businesses have their own go-to-market in terms of sales teams, marketing, that type of thing. The concept of go-to-market partners is how do you consider ultimately third parties to grow your business, okay? So how does your sales team and the partner sales team work together? Marketing and marketing, exec to exec, just to give you a top level. So Crossbeam is a software tool that I'll touch upon later. But great business, they produce a report specifically to the partner ecosystem space on an annual basis. Definitely worth a read, global in nature as well. Generally speaking, typical stats you'll hear is deals close faster, the size of the deal is increased when you work with partnerships as well, and the probability of the closure rate obviously increases too. So really good report, just a call out on those guys. Okay, so partner experience. This deck was just going to get too long if I started to break this down. So excuse that. I'm happy to catch up and chat with anyone afterwards, but I'll hit on a few of these. So PX, so, you know, what are you actually partnering for? Like what are the goals and KPIs? This over here, I've stolen it from the partnership leaders community. These are just some areas of KPIs and goals you can have with said partners. So revenue, engagement, impact, satisfaction. Next point around, like, if you don't know your own go-to-market and what differentiates yourself, you're going to have a really, really tough time kind of trying to get a partner bought in on you. So if you can't just give your pitch straight away, we were talking about this last week, I'm practicing that. I'm 3 months into this job at the moment. I'm still working on it. And so if you don't have that, it's going to be really hard to provide a good partner experience and a clear kind of avenue for the partner to engage with yourself. Identifying what the value exchange is to partners, so having that clear, so you're not kind of, it's not grey, so you can be upfront with that straight away. This is a big one. So who's going to manage the partnership or partner ecosystem? This is overlooked. Like, it's a great idea, partnerships, it's really, really good. A lot of the businesses in the hub here, from what I gather, are all different shapes and sizes. You don't have to have a dedicated partner manager. It could be the founder. Tony, it's, you know, you and Rhiannon at the moment. Like, it can be a variety of people. But if you're going to go down this approach of partnerships, you have to have an appreciation or identification of who's going to take that hat and run with it, because it's, if you don't have that, you know, your partner experience is going to be pretty shitty. Onboarding and enablement. So you've got a partner, they're standing at the start line. How do you actually get them leaning in? Like, how are you going to tell them about your business? How are you going to train them up on your product or value proposition? Marketing versus partner marketing. This is something, it's quite difficult getting an established marketing team that hasn't done partner marketing before to now start operating with third parties and try and bring that value proposition together. If you don't get it, it's hard. If you do get it, it's an accelerator again. So that's another thing to think about in terms of PX. A lot of businesses, as you mature, you start to see a CMO of a traditional marketing team build out a partner marketing organization. And then that starts to really address this as well, which is fantastic. That just comes back to scale and maturity. I call this next point, I like this concept of sphere of influence. I use it on the personal and the professional side, but knowing where you are in the business. So I'm the country manager for Australia and New Zealand for the business that I'm in now, but I've got a lot of people globally above me. So I can go so far in a conversation here, but when do I bring in my global CEO for a conversation with the Salesforce managing director here? That's the kind of thinking in terms of sphere of influence to show commitment and investment. Technical and solution support, big one. Where does a partner go? Who do they contact? Is it the partner manager? Do you have a portal? Is there a dedicated solution consultant that can answer questions? Do they do it over email? Is it over Teams, Slack? All that kind of stuff. So thinking that through. And then finally, deal registration. Most partners love it registering a deal. It's like tangible, you get to register it, you get a confirmation that it's registered, and that's going to return on like a fee and all that kind of stuff. You can start with email. It's the basic way of doing it, like free and all that kind of stuff. But it is there's ways of kind of upping that game a little bit more, like just easy ways of doing that without overthinking it, and then you can really build it out. But think it through, because there is that, you want that validation that you've registered the deal and it's legitimate. So, because it's a competitive space, so you don't want other competitors kind of getting in there. Any questions on that?
Elaborating on deal registration, I'm not familiar with what that means.
Okay, so I'll continue with the example I'm using. So Algolia is a new partner of ours as of Monday. And so I've got an opportunity for them over in New Zealand. We're new to the partnership with Algolia, the search platform. They have tons of partners all around Australia and New Zealand. I've just registered one of our existing customers in New Zealand as an opportunity through the Algolia deal registration portal. So if, let's say, one of my competitors comes to Algolia now and says, hey, I've got an opportunity with company X, they'll be like, okay, we can work with you, but actually, no, sorry, not that. We can't work with you because we're working with Ben, in this case, Material Plus. So it gives you that kind of ring around the opportunity to ensure that it's your opportunity with Algolia because I brought it to them rather than other competition of mine. Does that make sense? Yeah? You sure? Okay, partner selection. So, which partners? Like, what partners are relevant for you? We were having that conversation before, like just before we joined. So, is hardware partners, like is an OEM partnership. So going back to that start of the presentation in terms of types of partnerships, thinking that through, which obviously there's a bit of a list here. So what value exchange do you actually need? So be selfish. You don't want... there is that two-way street, that value exchange, but when you're starting to think about it, be selfish. It sounds bad, but start there and then make sure that you build that there is that value exchange for your partner too. But what do you need? I approached, and I asked Dana and Caleb if I can talk about this now. I approached Divide by Zero because I don't have what they have in Australia and New Zealand. It was selfish. I was like, I don't have that, I need it. I've got an opportunity that I cannot respond to unless I have that capability. So we talked about that. We did the other stuff that I've talked about in this, and we're submitting the response tomorrow. So that was the approach I took with those guys. And obviously there's a broader horizon in terms of our partnership. The goals align, this concept of ICP, if you haven't heard it before, ideal customer profile. So are we playing in the same customer set? It's pointless to go and form a partnership with a partner that's only in the government space when I'm over here and I've never worked with government. There's just, unless that's the play and you actually want to get into government, and that's the reason why you partner, but that overlap of ICP is really important. do they have good reach? What's their customer base? Account mapping. So I'll touch upon this in a moment. So do you have much overlap in terms of your accounts and existing book of business? And then coming back to that, who's going to manage your partnership? Do they have somebody in their team managing their partnership? Okay, because if they don't, you're going to just keep hitting a brick wall and you're not going to get very far with them. Anything on that one? Sorry? Oh, cool. Okay. So I'm just going to go through this pretty quickly. This is just a little, I kind of came up with like a 101 on co-selling motion. There's a lot within each of these points. But you select the partner, you get an NDA in place. What's your sweet spot differentiation or your ideal customer profile? What's the messaging? Do you want to build out collateral, or is it just an email to start with, or you're cold calling? Like, what's that verbal kind of messaging? You have that ready, and then you write, okay, let's onboard and educate the sales teams to get that accelerator into market in terms of that go to market. You do some account mapping with the respective sales teams. So who are their customers, opportunities, and prospects? And then once you've done all that, then you agree on the co-sell motion. Okay? So in other words, the go-to-market plan. So who's doing what? This is one of the most overlooked things. You have great, it's all good, everyone lines up, and then you both call the exact same person in the same company, and you look like idiots. So who's doing what? Sales, SDRs, which is inside sales, practice leads, etc. Again, that sphere of influence. Which accounts are we going after? What's marketing doing? Are we doing account-based marketing, which is ABM, all that kind of good stuff. And then importantly, I'm a huge believer on this, cadence of accountability. So this is again back to partner experience. If you don't have that cadence of accountability, everyone's busy. If you haven't, side note, 40X, the 4 disciplines of execution, go read it. It's an amazing book to just implement in terms of execution, team accountability. If you don't have that accountability, in this case with partners, everyone gets caught up in what's called the whirlwind, your day-to-day business, and you won't actually get to the strategic partner initiatives. Okay, so a couple of kind of quick visuals here. So account mapping, so Crossbeam is the tool I shared before. This is ultimately what Crossbeam does at a high level. So this is me using Crossbeam for material and commerce tools. Okay, so commerce tools is one of our partners. This is ultimately a matrix, it says there, account mapping matrix. Customers open opportunities, prospects or target accounts. And Crossbeam relies upon, ultimately I think they refer to it as a data escrow tool. You connect your 2 CRMs into Crossbeam, and then without showing PI, personal information, it spits out this. Okay? So I did this, and I said, hey, commerce tools, we should be partners because we've got all of these overlaps in each of these different boxes. Let's go. And they were like, that's awesome. And so each of these boxes, and I can break this down by region, then by salesperson. Each of these then become a sales and go-to-market discussion, an account mapping discussion. Okay?
So allow you to track opportunities jointly, which is, I guess, the next evolution of deal registration is to have that partner be able to track the deal in a transparent.
So that is in one of the PRM, partner relationship management tools. So that's where I hit on that later. So if you have Crossbeam and a PRM, you can start to do that together, which is in the partner world, a partner version of a CRM. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to touch on these quickly. I'm conscious of time. So go-to-market multiplier. So this is coming back to, like, you've got customer access, but if you can get your message and that value exchange and that partner experience, you then have all of the partners' salespeople selling your product or services. This is the magic, in my opinion. If you can get this, this is where you save costs, all that kind of stuff. You then have an entire sales force working for you in whichever market they're in. And this can be verticalized, geographically kind of oriented. And then big there, what I did there. So Salesforce, so I'm literally in this motion now. I'm setting up a partnership with Salesforce Australia and New Zealand to achieve that. Because I do not have that. Like, I am the sales guy for our business in Australia and New Zealand. So if I can tap that, you know, hopefully off to the races. But that partnership ecosystem is very saturated, so you really want to get your game in terms of value prop, partner experience, etc., because otherwise they'll ignore you.
That is exactly the strategy that we use to reach international markets. And it's been working really, really well.
Nice. Yeah. So you.
Because at the end of the day, you leverage the sales team.
Yeah.
You don't need to invest money there, and they're working for you.
And the beauty of Salesforce as well is you can go through their marketplace as well. So that's another way. So thank you. Okay, so co-marketing. I'm in Melbourne next week doing a mini golf event with a new partner of ours, accessing a particular target market in terms of ICP. It's costing me $3,000 Australian and a flight. And our target is we'll have 40 prospects there. And that immediately becomes, do the math, whatever stats you apply to, but, obviously opportunities and pipeline. So very cost-effective ways of doing this, and it really helps bring the two partnership organizations together. Just as one example. I'm a big believer in this concept of flywheels, so partner flywheels. So the idea of this, you can use this concept of flywheel in multiple ways, but ultimately the way I use it in the partnership game is in the middle goes a customer or a target account. Okay. In this case, Stuff is stuff.co.nz. It's one of the large independently owned media businesses in New Zealand. They're a customer of ours. Braze, they're using Braze. Sura's a partner of ours. Acquia, Commerce Tools, and they're AWS as well. So this for us is a way of adding more value to an existing customer of ours. Okay, so I can look at each of these partners as a way of bringing more value to the table for our customers at Stuff. Does that make sense? And now you can replace a customer with a target account or a prospect, and then the partners that are associated to that customer become go-to-market channels for you, or discussions that you can have. Cool? Okay. I'm not letting you ask me questions on that because of time. Okay, tips and tools to race through this. What not to do in the partnership game. I'm going to start there. Do not make it a one-way street. So by one-way street means you have a partnership and you just sit back waiting for them to bring you leads and opportunities. They might do that for, first 2, 3, 4 opportunities, but then they'll realize that you haven't brought them any. If it's not a two-way street, the partnership will die very quickly. Okay? Paper partnership, everyone in the partner game hates these. You sign up a partnership just because it's a nice fancy logo or something like that, but literally all it does is make the legal team busy and then nothing happens afterwards. And then suddenly, you see this tons and tons, the big software vendors, they end up with all these paper partnerships. I know you were involved in that back in the day. And then you get to a point where you have to go through a culling exercise because you've got all these contracts which obviously create a lot of burden on the business and you just have to get rid of them. And then don't boil the ocean. There are so many partners that you can play with out there, but start small, do it well to start with, and then expand as you go. Referral program, obvious. This is just a pull from highest converting B2B channels. So referral programs are great. Partner community, check it out. The note down the bottom though, it does cost. I've been paying for it in US dollars the last 5 years, so I don't know what it is in AUD, but it's a brilliant community. It's Slack, it's a Slack-based community. Resources, events, education, it's awesome. I can introduce you if you want to help get in there too. Okay, account mapping. So Crossbeam's one I've mentioned, Reveal and Workspan are two others. You can use these for free. Okay, so these are free. You obviously, there is a step up, pay to play for more features and bells and whistles and all that kind of stuff. But if you do have partnerships that you're looking at that are already on Crossbeam, I would highly recommend checking this out. Partner portals, what was talked about before. So I've used Allbound and in Partner before, but the call out here is you don't need these to start. Google Drive does the job to begin with. And give them access to Google Drive, free, everyone's happy, no questions, you know, all that kind of stuff. So start there and then you grow into these because these are relatively expensive. But the big thing I'll call out here is coming back to what you're saying, Carl, is that these partner portals are ways to really drive better partner experience, okay? Because it brings all the bells and whistles, it manages your deal registrations, marketing collateral, all that kind of good stuff. Last but not least, partner discovery. I have these two, these Built With and Wappalizer. Has anybody heard of these? Yep. If you're in this space, I highly recommend downloading them now. They're browser extensions. I've got Chrome. You just have them sitting there, and ultimately, if you run them, it gives you all of the technology that's behind a brand's website. So CMS, data, cloud, you know, tools, I mean. So what this does for me is it gives me the ability to kind of go, okay, I'm targeting Coca-Cola. Well, that's a bad example. I'm targeting Woolworths. I go into the Woolies site, I hit Wappalizer, and then it tells me all the tech that's running behind the Woolies site. And what that does, it immediately shows me which potential existing or potential partners that Woolworths are engaged with for me to create that flywheel. And then I've got obviously a direct approach with Woolies, but also an indirect partner approach into Woolies as well. Okay, so I'll end on this. You know, make sure you get the value exchange. If you don't, you won't go very far. And also the partner experience. That's important. Everyone loves a good experience, and if you provide your partners with a really good experience and you have that value exchange, you'll crush it. Good luck.
Any last questions?
Yeah.
I have a question about sort of the point at which you might formalise a partnership. So we're working really well with a channel, so there's quite a familiar approach there.
Yep.
But there's nothing in writing, and there's no kind of commercials. It's just probably going to be a technology partnership.
Okay.
And is there what sort of true point would you say, okay, this is probably something where, you know, we want to recognise this. We don't necessarily want money to change hands because there's value happening already.
NDA.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a bit of a commodity. Like, you know, there's always that question, like, what is an NDA? Like, but it formalizes. From what you just said, it formalizes that. It just means, oh yeah, okay, we're serious now. You know, like, oh, it's something legal, like, you know, that kind of thing. And it just brings the conversation to a head. And like, I've got a standard MSA that I've just started to use at exactly those points. But also I do find putting an NDA in front of, in your case, the people you're speaking to, it just helps get you to that next level of seriousness in terms of the part. It sounds pretty basic, but it does help.
Okay.
And then from there, you go whichever direction you want.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's good advice. Thank you.
All good. Anything else?
Another big hand for Ben.